There's nothing to talk about with basketball. The CBA has fucking ruined. We have Woj has left us. The CBA has been ruined by CJ McCollum and his cronies. The owners got their way. There's no slop. The slop is dried up. It's Monday. It's Monday. We didn't even do a slop pod at the end of last week.
No.
It's been a week since we got slop. Real slop. The slop that we have coming out now is like Jimmy Butler is mad that Max Strus is gone. And Kyle Lowry was fed up with Jimmy Butler because he was being a diva and wanted to fly private, not with the team. Who cares?
No. Hold on. Leandro Ball signed a mini mid-level exception for $8 million. For a record deal.
The kind of slop we're getting literally record deal slop. We're getting the brother of two NBA players. Woj would never allow this.
No.
Woj leaving us is the worst thing that has ever happened to slop. Because now we just have B-tier slop merchants and Shams, who is basically just tweeting like he's trying to get on an episode of Entourage.
Yeah,
he's just rubbing elbows with everyone, doing favors, talking about players' brothers signing with Def Jam. What's going on?
What's going on here? What would happen? I think I don't know. I think we will eventually get slop, but it is just like very annoying that like right now there's not
the deadline's in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that we're going to get a super slow deadline because I think teams are afraid to make major moves right now. I think the teams that tend to make these moves are either in asset hoarding mode or they're skeptical about making those kind of moves when the market right now seems to be only a few good players available. Like, I don't think Jimmy Butler is getting traded.
You don't? Really? Wow.
All the stuff that's come out is like, no one sent real offers to the Heat. I know we're still 3 weeks away and that can change. No one sent good offers to the Heat. The Heat don't want to take back extra money. The Pistons might be pivoting so that they don't have to take on like all this money for second round picks. We'll see if that stands. But if it does, like, it makes trades really hard to work. There needs to be, and especially because the Suns are the main team that's interested in that trade, and the Bradley Beal no trade clause puts another wrinkle in that. It's just too many of the same like people needing to get on the same page and just not enough motivation to get there. Because I don't think the Heat want to trade Jimmy Butler.
I mean, they don't, but like Jimmy Butler seems to be pretty done there. And I don't see him as a guy who's like changing his mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's the big problem, because otherwise I would be like, if it was like, I don't know, a normal player, I'd be like, we tried to trade you, didn't have a deal.
Sure.
You know, like, well, the other thing here that
with Jimmy, you have to worry about him, like, you know, like putting gasoline in sewers.
Yeah. Do you think he's friends with Whitney Cummings? Like,
definitely.
Probably. Yeah. Like,
yeah, they definitely run in the same kind of circles, I would imagine.
That was awesome. Anybody who missed that with Trill's joke, Whitney Cummings was saying that there's people putting gasoline in the sewers in LA, and that's why the fires are continuing to rage.
Yeah. So if there are any ecological disasters in Miami in the coming weeks, you'll know who it was.
Yeah. It was just gonna say we've all figured it out. I think the problem with the Jimmy thing is that like Jimmy wants to use opting out as a threat, but he really does not want to opt out.
Because it doesn't once again, it doesn't behoove him to opt out.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is that you have so many people doing like just a complete stalemate right now in terms of Pat Riley, Matt Ishbia, Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler. You just have all these parties that really don't want to get on the same page. And because of that, you run into these issues where like there's no motivating factors over the next 3 weeks to get a fucking deal done. And he's really the only major player who could possibly be traded at this deadline.
No, I think that, I don't know what, I think it's going to be like lower tier moves for like a lot of these teams. The other thing is like we do have like a pretty, all of a decent amount of the contenders and the people who are on like the outside, like looking in, don't have anything to trade. Like that's usually the class of team that tries to improve. Like the teams that are kind of in the Mavericks, where the Mavericks were last year, for example. That's like what saves slop season, is like teams that need a couple of like tweaky moves here and there. The problem is most of those teams this year are like have literally nothing they can trade. Teams like the Nuggets, the Bucks, the Suns, like the Lakers have very limited like assets left, but are still like in some of these mixes. But the reason they're not like pulling the trigger is some of these other things. And then
also they just traded for Dorian Finney-Smith and they didn't have to give up anything. They gave up 3rd round picks and D'Angelo Russell's expiring. So they're not motivated to overpay for someone when they're like, wait, we just got a rotation player for a guy who didn't want to be here and 2nd round picks. So like, what are we rushing to give up Rui Hachimura and a 1st for whoever, when maybe we can make marginal upgrades on the fringes with 2nd round picks and swaps or whatever. Like right now, and the Sixers are a team that the Sixers being bad is also bad for this deadline.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if the Sixers were a little bit better, let's say the Sixers were the 6th seed right now.
Yeah.
And they were winning games without Joel, or Joel was healthy, they could talk themselves into making that Maverick style move last year. They could talk themselves into making the Lakers style move from 2 years ago, where you get a few guys, you get a 4th starter, 5th starter, and then maybe you can make a conference finals run, or you can kind of jump your team from the 6th seed to the 3 seed, whatever it is. The Sixers being bad is bad for this deadline because now everyone seems to think like, I mean, I would be floored if they even traded a 1st round pick because they actually have stuff to trade. I don't think they're going to trade a 1st round pick. I think they're going to be trading seconds. I think they're going to be looking to dump salary as much as they can to lower their luxury tax bill, possibly get out of the luxury tax entirely. They're only $5 million over the tax, I believe. They're at least $5 million over the first apron. I can't remember if that is the same as the luxury tax or not.
Is it? No, I think it's a little higher than that.
It's not. Okay. So it's a little higher.
Yeah.
I really don't think that the Sixers are in a position, especially when you look at their schedule in the coming weeks. Have you looked at their schedule?
I know you told me it gets a lot harder.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing why I think that the Sixers are almost certainly cooked is because this past week was where they needed to rack up wins. Playing the Magic without a ton of rotation players, playing the Pelicans at home, playing all these teams that they easily should have beaten. They barely beat the Wizards in that game.
Suns, Wizards, Nets, yeah. That's the only
And now they play the Thunder, Knicks, Pacers, Bucks, Nuggets, Caps the next few games. It doesn't even get easier from there because then they play later they play the Lakers, Kings, Nuggets, Celtics, Mavericks, Heat. Like they are past the easy point of their schedule. So I actually think that what's most likely for the Sixers at this deadline, and people are going to hate me for saying this. I think about this shit a lot, and I thought about the fact that this team is not really going anywhere, and it sucks that they owe OKC their pick, but whatever, you can't do anything about that now. I think what they're going to end up doing is I think they're going to trade like a few guys to save on the luxury tax, possibly get under the first apron if they can somehow shed $5 million in a trade. And then I think they're going to try to get like minimum contract guys, buyout guys. Like if Bruce Brown gets bought out by the Raptors, they'll be one of the few teams under that first apron that can sign him. I think that if Lonzo Ball now it seems like the Bulls want to compete and like they'll probably go the other direction like we've predicted so many times. But like if Lonzo Ball gets bought out, I think that they would be front of the line for that. D'Angelo Russell probably won't get bought out, but these are the kind of guys I think they'll be trying to get, and they'll say this is better than any player that we could trade second round picks for, and we don't want to trade first round picks because this season is a fucking wash. And trading for this season, trading future assets for this for this season is probably a mistake if you're the Sixers. The only way that I think that they decide to trade a first-round pick at this deadline, one of the 4 that they can trade, is that I think that it would be in a scenario where they can acquire a young player who's under contract for a few years or is on the verge of getting extended that they think has long-term upside. I don't think they're going to be trading for guys in the middle of their prime like Cam Johnson. I don't think they're going to be trading for guys that have high prices for trade or contract. I think that they're going to be conservative at this deadline. I kind of think that they're right to do it in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably the move. By the way, they're about 11 or 10.6 over the tax. So
yeah, they're probably not going to be able to shed that much. So they'll probably just duck the first apron, save money on the tax.
Yeah, they can get themselves in a different. Are they in the repeater? Have they paid the tax?
No, I don't think they have. The thing is I joke about this. The reason why GMs love Daryl Morey is because Daryl Morey has had a history of building these teams that are competitive, that at least pretend to be contenders on the surface of the contenders. And then in terms of actually like he's never had a season. This will be the first season in his career as an executive where he's not at least 500, which is insane when you consider how long he's been.
Yeah, that is pretty nuts. Yeah,
I think it's the longest streak going. And then on top of that, he always figures out a way to save the owner's money by either dodging the tax entirely at the deadline, getting under an apron, or saving money in some capacity. That like he became famous in Houston for his salary tax dodges at the deadline a few years ago with Matisse Thybulle when he traded Thybulle and then brought in Jalen McDaniels and then was like, actually, we think Jalen Daniels can be a starter, when in reality they were literally just trying to get under the luxury tag. Yeah. Like those are the kind of moves that he makes. Now, shedding that much salary is going to be tough.
Yeah,
but I do
think Drummond are one of the 3, either KJ McDaniels, Kelly Oubre, or KJ Martin. KJ Martin. Yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah, they're not that. I think what they will do is I think they'll trade. They'll try to figure out a way to either move Drummond, or they'll just dump like Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon. The problem is you have to stay under that first apron if you want to sign buyout guys.
Yeah.
That's another tough part of this is like, okay, you could shed $5 million in salary, but then you still have to stay under that apron if you want to sign buyout guys. And that's tough because you're just up against that. Like you might have to salary dump a third guy just to even make that happen. So it's not an easy thing to pull off. And I will be really frustrated if they end up dumping KJ Martin and not getting back like at least a rotation player, because he has been out for a few weeks, but he's sneakily been like, someone did this thought experiment the other day in the Discord, and I've thought about this a lot too. If the Sixers cut their entire bench right now, how many guys would get picked up? We're not counting McCain because he's out for the year.
Yeah, definitely not Gordon, Drummond, or Jackson. None of those guys are getting
Lowry would not get picked up.
Lowry would not get picked up.
And these guys are all playing real minutes in the Sixers rotation right now.
Yeah. All love to Adam Bona and Ricky Council, but I think
I think they'd probably get 2 ways.
Yeah, I think it's dicey for those guys. So, yeah.
It would literally be Yabu and KJ Martin.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's tough.
And then maybe Drummond is a third big for like the Suns or something, as Will says in the comments. But I'm not that. And by the way, the second straight year that this has happened. Last year, they got rid of Daniel House. He never got picked up by anyone. He's still out of the league. Kork Moss, he never signed with anyone, went overseas. Marcus Morris is the only. Did Marcus Morris get signed? He signed a training camp deal with the Knicks, played for the Cavs at the end of last year. He would basically be a worse version of Yabu in this scenario. Marcus Morris
hasn't played since he played for the Cavs.
And it's like, it's a joke. Like the team that they have built this year. I didn't even watch the game yesterday. It was the first game I missed this year, the Sixers Magic game that was on, because everyone was like, oh, it's close. They were up late, and I was like, they're losing, dude. Like, I've seen this fucking story. The Eagles won today. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm done with this fucking team. Like, they throw Maxey out to fucking die every night. It's not even fun watching him anymore because he struggled all year. They have so little talent and cohesiveness on this roster. And then on top of that, like they're constantly injured because of Joel and then the McCain injury. KJ's out now, and they lose one guy, and they're immediately playing three of the worst players in the NBA. And what they've done is they've built, like, Daryl Morey is still building rosters like it's 2016 or 2017. Like you can do the stars and shitters thing. You can't do that anymore. Like the league is too deep, the league is too good. Like you have to have real depth from, like, if you were to rank our 5 through 10 against other teams in the NBA, we have maybe one of the, especially of teams that had expectations to be a contender this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally, it is the worst fucking 5 through 15 or whatever in the NBA of any team that wants to be taken seriously. Like it is legitimately horrible. They waste roster spots. They have an open roster spot. They have an open two-way spot to save money for the fucking owners, who we'll get to in a second. Like, it's a joke, dude. This team's a fucking joke. I can't even get mad at Nurse anymore. Everyone's mad at Nurse, and I'm like, bro, this team is horrible. Like, they didn't build a good team at all, and they can't withstand any fucking injuries. And Will points out something that I've been thinking about for fucking weeks, which is that God is a Cade Cunningham stan for giving Maxey, who is my favorite player, who I've always said is better than Cade, is now, I am here to suffer because they gave Cade a competent team, kinda. And to be fair, that's even stretching it. I think Cade's done a lot of heavy lifting on that team this year. And he has gotten them into the play-in. They're, 19 and 18 or whatever they are right now. And Maxey is struggling to keep this team afloat with not a lot of other help. Like, Paul George is finally starting to look normal, and he fouls out at the end of the fucking game. He hit a huge three to go up 4 late in the game, and then immediately fouled out. And I was like, that's the summary of the Sixers season right now. The best Sixers news we've gotten all year is that they're not moving the stadium.
Man,
it's a joke, dude.
It's they're letting everyone favor the Eagles. I've thought you whenever you're watching a Sixers game, you kind of look like Bryce Harper in that haunting banana bread visage.
I'm just drinking raw milk.
Why does he look like that? Like, I look like that. I have tired eyes, but like I've seen him look normal. But bro, you look so sick. What are you doing?
Like, he looks like he has pink eye in those videos.
Look, I understand the appeal of raw bread, but like Louis Pasteur was onto something, brother. Like you gotta just trust the milk scientists on that one. Like,
no, they're putting woke in milk.
Woke milk.
I'm not drinking any of that woke milk.
There's no more woke milk.
So, by the way, the second plane has hit the tower. Someone just commented that Joel Embiid is out again tomorrow. I was really gonna watch that Sixers Thunder game because I like watching the Thunder. And if Embiid played, I was like, look, we're gonna lose, but like, I was thinking about streaming for it. Like, this season is just a mess, dude. Like, they should just absolutely, like, once again, they unfortunately had that little Mickey streak where Joel was healthy and they look competent. That might take it. Like, it's hard to tank right now. Like, bro, look at the teams that are at the bottom that we'll talk about with the Cooper Flagg shit later in this episode.
Yeah.
The teams that are like down there, like the Jazz Nets tank off last night was like a fucking movie. It was literally, they were trying so hard to lose back and forth.
Let's go.
It's so hard to keep up with these teams that, by the way, the Nets still haven't even made their moves to fully just bottom out. Like, the Sixers' best hope is that the Blazers and the Pelicans get competent. And like the Pelicans are finally starting to get competent down the stretch of the fucking midway part of this season. But like, that is their best bet, and then they just have bottom 5 odds, and there's a 50-50 chance they keep their pick. Like, that is really the only thing they have, because right now they're in the worst spot, and this is what I've been saying, is that they kind of can't even pick a direction, because like Joel just continues to be out, the team continues to be bad, but if he ever gets a stretch where he's healthy for a month, like, the team's just going to be like the 8th worst team in the NBA, which is the worst spot you could be when you owe a top 6 protected pick to the Thunder and you're not even good enough to catch. We're not even good enough to catch the Bulls or the Pistons.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? I'm not watching the games anymore. I haven't watched. This is literally the first time in like 10 years that I'm not watching Sixers games.
I don't know why you would. When I would like do them with you, it was like pretty painful. Like earlier this year, they are like genuinely like not fun. With all their guys injured. Like they're just like not fun to watch. And then like Jared McCain was fun, and then of course because
immediately KJ Martin was fun, and he gets hurt. Like it's like It's. I think that teams need to approach building your roster differently nowadays. Like if you look at all the best teams in the NBA in each conference, you look at the Celtics, you look at the Thunder, you look at the Cavs, you look at the Grizzlies, all these teams have playable guys 1 through 10. Like they all have, whether it's guys they drafted or guys that they use their exceptions on in free agency. Sometimes it's a lucky vet min guy that pops, like Ty Jerome has for the Cavs this year. The Grizzlies are fantastic at drafting and scouting. The Thunder are. The Celtics have done a good job getting guys on like decent contracts like Hauser and Pritchard and all those guys. And then they're not, the other thing that the Celtics and a lot of teams do is like, they tend to identify what is the easier positions to fill. And like being a center on the Celtics is the easiest thing in the world. Yeah. Like all you need is Luke Cornett out there for fucking 15 minutes or Kada or one of these guys. And like, they can survive that. The Sixers have ignored the margins for like 4 years. And that's the worst thing you can do when you're trying to build a top heavy team. It just doesn't work anymore.
Oh, and it's also crazy because like, as we've pointed out, Daryl Morey is like traditionally like a very good margins guy when he's like drafting and like signing young players, but like margins move Daryl Morey, who's like signing vets, is like maybe the worst GM in the league. So
Chiodo texted me this yesterday.
Yeah.
The average age for a vet minimum guard that the Sixers signed this year was 36 years old. Between Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, and Kyle Lowry.
That's older than me, dude. That's crazy.
It's insane. And like Will's commenting right now, like the kind of guys they should be targeting are the Lonnie Walkers, Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith Jr., the guys that are fucking free agents right now, where it's like, these are guys that are fighting to be back in the league. They have something, they're in the middle of their athletic prime. They have something to fucking play for. They have something to fucking prove. None of these guys are physically have anything to prove. Kyle Lowry already won a championship. He has nothing left to prove. Fucking he's making the Hall of Fame. Like, if you're gonna have these guys on the roster, there needs to be some sort of motivating factor. Who are the two best guys that they picked up for this offseason in terms of like, and we saw it with Kelly Oubre last year. Yabu's playing great. He's in the middle of his prime. He has something to play for. KJ Martin is proven that he has something to play for. Like, if guys have nothing to play for and they're already accomplished and they've already made their money, what the fuck motivating factor are they going to have to do anything? Like,
especially
they don't even try.
Yeah. Especially on a bad team, because that's the motivating thing. Like, I think a lot of guys try when it's like a good team and you're part of something good, but it's like when you're going through the dregs of like a really shitty season like this Sixers
January,
season,
bro.
Yeah.
This is the only time that we're supposed to be able to enjoy as Sixers fans. Yeah. December and January was literally our Super Bowl, and now we don't even fucking have that. Like, I don't know. It's just this season is really the Magic were down 8 rotation players last night and won. The Sixers didn't get a rebound for 7 minutes in that game.
Crazy. Oh my God.
Like, bro, there is like every piece of information I learn about the Sixers is designed to drive me fucking insane. Like, I swear to fucking God, dude. Like, everything I learn about the Sixers this season is just more information that makes me want to drive off a fucking cliff. It's just absolutely nuts, dude. And the fact that, like, they could be aggressive right now. They could literally be like, go sign Lonnie Walker. Like, he can get out of his contract with his team. Go fucking get whoever. Like, these guys aren't even good. But at least you could fucking try. January 15th is in 2 days. We won't get a fucking trade until 3 p.m. of the goddamn fucking deadline again.
Yeah.
And Daryl's gone fucking missing. He doesn't tweet anymore. By the way, Sleepy Daryl. I've been talking shit on him on Twitter, and he has not unfollowed me. So I'm telling you, he's not active online. He's hiding.
Yeah, he's hiding. He's in the He's getting he's opening lines to Tillman. He's being extradited to Italy. Going back to his he's asking his old boss for a favor to flee the country.
He's going to be the ambassador to what's China? A country that likes crypto?
I mean, well, we turned what was it? Was it El Salvador, Guatemala? We turned one of those countries into like just a shell corporation for fucking.
It's fuck. Is it Argentina?
Well, Argentina's like a libertarian like nightmare.
They did it to themselves.
Yeah, they did it to themselves. I think I think it is El Salvador that it's like we like put in charge like a guy in charge of their government who just says like, yeah, we love crypto. It's fucking awesome. like
so
and it's
Daryl
like
is the ambassador to El Salvador now.
Yeah,
there we go.
You can do that.
Yeah. So
wow. Oh man. Draymond is
this is the greatest slop that we have going right now.
Yeah.
Draymond Green says the only bad teams mortgage their future for win now moves.
So true.
I mean, time to look in the mirror, buddy.
Yeah.
What are the Warriors then?
God. It's funny that the Warriors currently have a positive point differential, but are out of the play-in.
Yeah, because they lose they blow a ton of leads.
Yeah.
They've done that all season, outside of when Buddy Hield was shooting like better than prime Clay.
They're like perfectly 500, like perfectly balanced, 10-10, 9-9.
Equal as everything should be.
It is as everything should be. It's amazing. It's just funny the Lakers are like negative and are the 6th seed. And
I gotta kind of hand it to JJ Redick. That's good coaching.
Yeah,
that's winning on the margins.
Yeah. That's JJ Film Room, baby.
12th in the West in point differential, but 6th in the standings. That's executing. That's winning on the margins. That's getting your job done.
I'm sure they will definitely stay there the rest of the season.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
So the other piece of information, the only good piece of information that we learned about the Sixers this week is that, I'm trying not to be like too negative about this because it's objectively a good thing that the Sixers aren't moving their stadium. Mm-hmm. The Sixers are staying in South Philadelphia, as we've talked about on the podcast many times. Right. The complex is great. We love the complex, folks. It's awesome. I'm very glad it's easy. Everyone is happy. Chinatown's not getting fully gentrified and basically kicking a ton of people out. The public transportation isn't going to be a mess like it probably would be if it were moved there. The traffic isn't going to be a mess in the same way it would be if it moved there. All great, good things. I'm happy. The only thing, and I had this exact immediate thought, and Andrew Saltz on Twitter tweeted this as well, so I want to give him a little bit of credit, but it is disappointing because the more information that we learned about this coming out was essentially that Comcast, who owns the Flyers, used to own the Sixers, sold it to Josh Harris. And Josh Harris and the Sixers ownership came to an agreement to build a new stadium down at the complex. They're going to build up the complex. There's apparently going to be a ton of hotels and restaurants down there, blah, blah, blah. The only thing that I'm bummed out about is like, this is not a victory for like Chinatown or the working class or anything like that. For 2 fucking years, they pushed and pushed and pushed to get this shit done. They bought politicians. They all fucking lined up for this shit to be built in Center City. And they all owned them. And the people that were pushing back against it and had very legitimate reasons to push back against it are not the reason why this thing isn't being built. It's being built because another billionaire stepped in and called his fucking people, the Roberts family who owns Comcast, and they fucking called, the NFL, the NBA, they all got, and they convinced another billionaire to not make this decision. And it just, it does fucking like great result, happy for everyone involved, but it does suck that like you have to hope. Well, we just hope that billionaires make the right decision because they never fucking do.
It's not, yeah. That's not like, yeah.
I did like seeing all the arguments that were like, well, now actually we're losing the low income housing that was going to be built.
I'm sure.
And I was like, yeah, definitely, man. That was 100% going to happen for sure.
Well, they threw into the press release like a little like throwaway line, which is like, we're going to revitalize the Market East area, which is where they're building everything. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, are you still going to pull some bullshit where you completely gentrify and like displace people and move them into this neighborhood and fuck everything up? Or is that just, hey, we kind of committed to this thing?
Well, it's land development. I mean, like that's like really what this is. It's all like behind it because that's how the that's how the Barclays Center got made. Like, you know what I'm saying? The Nets were basically used as a way to like develop the like Atlantic station area of Brooklyn. Like I forget the guy's name. He like literally went out and like bought the Nets, so he had like plausible deniability to be like, well, this is why I'm building a stadium here.
A Russian guy, right?
No, it wasn't Prokhorov. What was the guy's name? There was like a different.
He bought it after.
I think so. Like, I think Prokhorov was like the money thing.
Okay.
But, like this guy was like a minority owner, and it was like his baby, Ratner. That's his name. Yes, and he came up with it and just like. And now like if you go down there in like the Atlantic Terminal, like that like part of town, it's basically like the Dumbo like finger like stretches into like that part of Brooklyn now,
right?
Which is very funny. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I was gonna say it's all real estate like shit, and like you know if you can keep public money out of it, like I guess that's like that's
the best
you could hope for.
That's what they said. There's no public money going into it. It's all private living. And I think that part of so from what I understand, part of all of this within that contract was that there was something about public money being used to build future stadiums and how they would have to negotiate with the Sixers, and there was a lot of complicated bullshit. And the Eagles, I'm imagining, are probably going to want to build a stadium sometime because their stadium's been around for like almost 20 years now. And the Eagles, no, it's over 20 years at this point. I think it's been 2004 or 2005. So it's getting to the point where it's like, they're probably going to want to build a new stadium, which is why the NFL got involved. And they're probably, I mean, look, I hope they don't get public money because I never want sports owners to get any fucking public money to build these stadiums. But there's only one team with a high enough approval rating for that to happen in this city. And that's because if the Sixers ask for it, everyone would be like, fuck off. Are you kidding me? The Eagles, everyone loves the Eagles. And the Eagles win. And if they ever ask for that, I think that the city would have much more grace when it comes to that. And also they would just buy all the politicians in a similar way to how the Sixers did. So once again, this is all good. I'm glad. I'm happy. I'm happy for the people in Chinatown that they're not getting they don't have to worry about their future housing and their businesses and all that shit. I'm happy for almost everyone involved. I just think that it just feels gross that it had to involve these billionaires getting involved and basically doing a dick swinging contest over this. And, you know, what people will say, oh, well, it was all leverage and they had to go with this far just to get this deal done and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so you're literally just like using the public as they're holding them hostage essentially as a way to get what you want in your shady fucking business deals. Like all of it feels gross to me. Having said all of this, they are talking about bringing a WNBA team to Philadelphia, which I would be very much on board with. And I've followed the NBA casually, like our WNBA casually. I've really wanted a team in Philadelphia, and all these cities that are smaller than Philadelphia that don't have nearly as much of a basketball following have gotten teams over the last few years. And if Comcast and the Sixers get in on a team together, I think it would be great if they could bring the WNBA. That's the thing that I'm most excited for about this whole thing. Obviously beyond fucking not moving the stadium. Like no one ever wanted that to happen in the first place. But I think that is the one positive that could come out of this.
Yeah, we do. Hopefully that happens for us and we move the Sun out of their terrible casino games.
Mohegan Sun.
Literally, I think that's literally where they play is Mohegan Sun. It's just
from Uncut Gems.
Yes, that literally, like that is where the Connecticut Sun play. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah,
I was gonna say it does. The WNBA expansion feels like it happens faster than the NBA expansion, because NBA expansion usually requires teams to. Now, keep in mind, this stadium isn't coming for a while, so I'm sure that they will not even get that. Maybe they get a team and then they play them at the old stadium for a year or two, but it's probably quite a few years away. But because the WNBA requires infrastructure to already be in place, like you already have to have a stadium set up in order for teams to expand into those markets. They tend to get off the ground a little bit quicker. Also, there's way fewer teams, so they're trying to get as many teams as possible. Like the NBA, it's going to take forever. Like, I mean, we've been hearing about the Seattle and Vegas stuff for fucking what, 3 years at this point, 4 years?
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten the announcement, and that's a certainty, and it's probably not even going to get done until like 2030.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of crazy how slow that's moving. Like, I don't know. Like there must be some kind of like argument or like something going on, but I would think that would be like easy money. Like I feel like both of those markets are going to be robust enough that you're not going to like lose money on revenue sharing.
You're definitely not going to lose money, but it just, once again, the difference between the WNBA expanding and the NBA expanding is that the WNBA only goes to places where the infrastructure is already set up and they play on the opposite schedule. Yes. So it's easy for them to go to a new city and be like, hey, in 2 years, we're going to have a team here. Whereas with the NBA, like, there's so much shit that needs to be done. Like they're going to need to build full basketball stadiums in both of those cities. And they're going to need to be able to accommodate a whole fucking team in a way that it isn't the same which is why I'm hoping that they can like speed track the WNBA team to Philly and maybe play them where the Flyers and the Sixers already play. Because someone asked in the comments, the Sixers and the Flyers are going to be playing at the same place still. That's the one part about this that I'm like, once again, I prefer it this way. That's the one part that kind of sucks is like, you're still beholden to like sharing a stadium with an NHL team. And that I just felt like we were going to move away from that model.
Are you guys like because the Celtics don't live in their own building. So like the Bruins get priority. Like is it like that? Yeah.
So that's the thing is that I think that this new deal basically makes it so that the Sixers have just as much say as the Flyers do. So it's a 50-50 split of owning the new building. Whereas before the Flyers owned the building and would rent it to the Sixers, which is why the Sixers proposed this whole new thing, either in Center City or Camden or wherever, because they wanted to own their own space in addition to the real estate play you were saying, which is 100% correct.
Yeah.
They wanted to be able to dictate their own schedule. They wanted to be able to have things on their own say, whereas the Flyers would always get preferential treatment because they own the building. They can schedule based on that. Now it's going to be a 50-50 split. I am kind of surprised just because it feels like between being an arena that hosts concerts, having a WNBA team, having an NHL team, and having an NBA team, that's a lot for one building.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I mean, it's the same thing in Boston, and Philly's a bigger city than Boston, but like with like more big suburbs kind of around it. Like I don't know. I think it's interesting that's how that works out. So
we'll see. I think it's ultimately a win for the city. It's a win for everyone. Once I've said it many times before. If there's one thing that Philadelphia fucking hates, it's change. like they do not like people coming, especially people coming in from New York, like the Sixers owners, and being like, here's how it's going to be done. They don't like things moving around. They don't like change. They especially don't like New York people telling them what to do. So I think that from that perspective and everything else, like I'm happy for everyone involved. It is very funny because now there's the politicians here are so fucking shameless, dude. Like the mayor has egg all over her face and she's just at the conference like, yeah, this is great. This is what we always wanted. And it's like, you literally were saying the opposite 2 months ago. They all look like fucking, like they're so fucking shameless. Like it's just so obvious how bought and paid for everyone is. It's a joke, dude.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I was gonna say we're entering. I've like unplugged from politics because it seems like we've had it's been a rough it's been a rough like year.
That's why I did 4 years ago, dude. Like I was just like I just can't do it anymore. Like it is just too much information to take in that is just bad all the time. And like we've taken so many L's that once again, I don't want anyone to feel bad about this. I'm happy that the way that it turned out, but like the overlying like message and reason why this got done, it makes me feel a little bit gross just in general. Like this is literally just
the bad guy. It's still at the end of the day, it's Chinatown, you know.
Exactly. Like, and that was just a pawn in their whole fucking stupid game. Like it's completely bullshit.
Smashed. Yeah. The Twitter, which I love, is just ruined beyond any comparison just because some weird fucking freak like wanted to I don't know, do something different for like the election. Like it's over now. Can you please just sell it to someone else, man? Like come on.
Yeah, Blue Sky doesn't have the juice yet. It doesn't have enough people.
I don't think it's ever gonna have the juice. I think it got too Tumblr-fied and now people don't wanna.
I mean, all Blue Sky has ended up for me is just every once in a while I remember I have it and I post a popular tweet that I had over on there. Like I'm like, it's like, oh, this did well on Twitter, will also do well on Blue Sky.
And I feel bad because, like, you know, then again, if you ever accidentally tab over to the For You page on Twitter, it's just like, okay, that's someone getting beheaded in a car accident. That's open Nazi propaganda. That's
every tweet is 1,488 characters.
Interesting. Yeah. However, all my friends are there and they're good at posting. So who's to say?
So that's kind of all I had to say about the Sixers situation. But I'm sure we'll learn more information in the coming days and weeks. It seems like they got everything out there so far that they wanted out there. But let's talk a little bit about our guy Cooper Flagg, because I think the last time we talked about Cooper Flagg, I think that I don't want to say it was in the most positive light. I want to say that we thought that Dylan Harper had a legitimate chance to go with the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And that we both still were like, well, I think both of us have kind of been on the same page when it comes to Flagg in this draft, which is that
I've never thought he was like, well, I thought Harper like had a case, like, and I'd hear it out like, earlier in the year, but like Flagg's always been my number 1 guy. Like
you've never wavered your Flagg.
I've never wavered my Flagg. That's the king of Newport, Maine. I will never betray him or slander him. Also, because the other thing people are forgetting is that he plays for Duke, a school that actively makes their players worse.
I mean, we've talked about the old Kentucky market inefficiency.
Yeah,
it is now the Duke market inefficiency. Now that Cal's moved on to Arkansas, John Shire and Duke. For the last few years, Derek Lively is an example of someone who was underutilized at Duke. Also someone who got better throughout the course of the year at Duke, to be fair. He was pretty good by the end. Really struggled to start. Jared McCain last year, same thing. Really popped in the pros this year. And Cooper Flagg was another guy that kind of, now look, the defense was always there. He was racking up stocks. The athleticism looked off the charts, all that shit. But now his offense is really rounding into form the last handful of games. Specifically, this is the reason why both of us have never really faded on Flagg at all. He just turned 18 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, and he still was showing signs of just absolute stardom at Duke. And when he was 17, now since he's turned 18, he's coming off his best game of the season against Notre Dame. He has basically refined his offensive game and his scoring over the last handful of games. The shot has looked much better. Shamit Dua had a tweet from a few weeks ago where he basically said, if Cooper Flagg goes number 1, he will have the lowest true shooting of any player I've ever seen go number 1 in a draft. At the time when he tweeted that, he had a 50% true shooting on the season. And then in the 5 games after that, he really ratcheted up his efficiency. Now, keep in mind, he's still dragging it up from a slow start. But right now, he has, in just those 5 games since he tweeted that, Cooper Flagg has brought his true shooting up to 58.3%.
Jesus.
He has a plus 16 BPM for a fucking freshman that just turned 18. A plus 16 BPM. I want to put this in perspective for those who aren't really familiar with what that means, because BPM is a stat that I think in the NBA can get a little bit like overrated. It's a little wonky, especially for like defensive guys tend to get a little bit overrated, but bigs who get a lot of blocks and rebounds tend to get a little bit overrated. There's only been 5 freshmen in the history of college basketball since they started tracking it who have had a BPM over 14. Do you want to know the list of that?
Let me guess. Anthony Davis.
Yep.
Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess.
One's recent, actually.
One's
Chet
recent. Chet's was pretty high. Okay.
So there's 3.
And
one is our age.
How about our age? I was gonna guess Cat next. Not Cat.
No, Cat was not there.
Our age.
Kevin
Durant.
Kevin Durant was not there.
Oh, okay.
Kevin Durant did not have good defensive BPM.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Who's the last one? I'm not going to get it.
There's 2 left. One is Kevin Love, the one who's around our age.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other one is like almost exactly our age. I guess Beasley's a little bit older. Michael Beasley.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Michael Beasley had that insane fucking Kansas State year. Yeah,
if you pull up if you go historically, if you always go through these like stat filters with these guys, and you run through, here's guys that had this insane production in college. Michael Beasley is on a lot of those lists.
Yeah.
Like he is one of those what if guys, because he was so productive in college, got drafted and was really good young in his career and was like on the right trajectory. And then funny enough, Kevin Love being brought up here was traded to Minnesota and played with Kevin Love, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yeah. And then that eventually ended up because of the LeBron signing in Miami. Funny enough, a few years later, LeBron leaves and goes and plays with Kevin Love in Cleveland. But Michael Beasley was an insane prospect. And it seems like all of the shit that kind of derailed his career was due to either like just weird conflicts that he had, or because the fact that he just never got into the right context for him. Yeah. And he's a great what if guy, an insane I remember in the draft really liking him the year that he went number 2 to Derrick Rose was the first pick in that draft, if I remember correctly. And he went second.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that when we talk about like margin for error for franchises, so many teams can never afford to miss on the second pick in the draft. And Miami literally was able to salary dump Michael Beasley and then sign LeBron James.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because that was the thing, was I don't think they would have given up on him if it weren't for the fact that we're literally getting Chris Bosh and LeBron James and adding them to this roster at the same time.
That's 100% true. Like they definitely. I saw a tweet that was like, because now Heat fans have fully turned on Pat Riley, and they were like, look at all these bums that he had Dwayne Wade play with, and it was like, Norris Cole or whoever and whatever and all this stuff, and then they were like, he signed the greatest player of all time in the middle of his prime.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I was gonna say he signed a 26-year-old LeBron James. What the fuck do you want from him? Like, yeah. What do you mean, man?
Like literally formed the best big 3 that we've ever seen in Miami. They went to 4 finals, 1-2 finals. Well, Dwayne Wade was the reason they got him, and it's like, yes, that is true, but also like you can't do much better than adding. And you have to be able to create the room in that way. They at least remained flexible enough to get that done. But yeah, Michael Beasley, obviously shit didn't really work out for him in the same way that it did for the other players on this list. But
that is a good point that Will brings up, though. He did give up first round picks in the sign-in trades, which is very funny. to get the money, to get more money for LeBron. And
he dumped a first-round pick in that sign-in trade?
One for each Toronto and Cleveland, because they were both sign-in trades to get the bigger contracts.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess back then it was just different.
Yeah, I was going to say it was like way different, because it was like, obviously you trade 2 first-round picks for LeBron James and Chris Bosh, but like
Pat Riley's been making moves like he's in a hospice for the last 15 years too.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep that in mind. We're literally going on almost 2 decades of Pat Riley acting as if Miami's already underwater.
I think of those moves as being in the hospital, because it was when I like got kicked out of school and I was working in the fucking operating room at the hospital, and I remember like talking to all the doctors about like the signings and like explaining the cap mechanics to them. Like, yeah, well, you gotta, they have to get rid of Beasley because of this stuff, and the doctor would be like, okay, well, I gotta go do this knee replacement. I gotta go. Like,
they were talking to him like, yeah, this guy might have screwed up to end up here, but one day he's going to host a podcast where he uses all this knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were like, it was literally like scrubs. They were like literally using like the iodine soap and like washing their hands. And I'm talking to them because I like ran like the closet of like supplies, and I was like, yeah, no.
Doctors aren't above slop. Everyone loves slop. Is for everyone.
No, they love slop. Yeah. It was great.
They love to hear about it. By the way, I had a doctor's appointment the other day. The doctor asked what the name of my podcast was, and I told him, and I was like, "Oh man, I really hope that doctor tunes in for an episode." What the fuck is this?
Yeah, let's go. Log in. So my coworkers have all tried to listen to it, which is very funny. Would you believe that only my guy coworkers continue to listen?
I mean, I'm shocked that any of your coworkers continue to listen.
Yeah.
People will always ask me about the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, what is it? Like, I want to know more. Like, what? And I'm like, do you like basketball? And they'll be like, no, but I don't care. And then I'm like, why are we wasting our time on this? If you don't like basketball, you're going to hate this podcast.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't be further from the mainstream of covering sports too.
Yeah. No.
Like, horrible, dude.
All right. Do you think 9/11 jokes are funny? No? Okay. Well, That probably won't.
Exactly.
It's probably not starter.
Start checking off the list here. Yeah. What do you think about age gap discourse?
Yeah.
So
what about delivery apps? Do you think people should go get their food? Do you think people should be able to request women personal shoppers? Like, what do you think? Like, weigh in. Let's go.
We're going down all the discourse right now.
Yeah.
So Will just commented and said the one of those two first turned into TLC. Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot from the Sixers.
Amazing.
Let's go. Amazing.
That's so good.
Traded for 26-year-old LeBron James. Fair value, I would say.
That really is like one of the craziest things that ever happened. Because when did Shaq go to the Lakers? How old was Shaq when he went to the Lakers? Maybe he was probably
the Lakers?
Yeah. When
he was really young. He was like 24, 25.
Okay.
Because remember, you could get to free agency quicker. This was before the CBA set up the second contract thing. So a lot of guys could get, he didn't even have his second contract with Orlando.
Oh, yeah. So he would have been 24 then. Yeah.
He was the first, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong on this. I think he was the first player to ever get $100 million free agency contract. I think the Lakers offered him 4 years, $100 million. And Jerry West convinced him to sign with the Lakers. The Magic apparently had an opportunity to bring him back, but they fumbled it in some way. I remember, like, they thought he was going to come back, and then he got that offer, and they fucked it up, and teams were just so cheap back then. Yeah. Duncan was drafted in 97 and was a free agent in 2000 and almost went to Orlando with Tracy McGrady and Grant Hill. God, there's that story, but you remember the story, right? The Doc Rivers story?
No, what was that?
Oh my God. So Doc Rivers was the coach of the team at the time. He just got hired, and Tim Duncan asked Doc Rivers, the only accommodation I ask that you make is I might have been his fiance at the time, but became his wife, could fly on the plane with the team. And Doc said, no, only the team can fly. And then he said, okay, I'm going back to the Spurs. There's a video of Grant Hill telling that story on the jump, and Tracy McGrady's there, and Tracy McGrady looks like he's about to throw up. Like, he's like, oh my, obviously despises Doc Rivers.
That's so funny. That's such a funny thing to like get through. Well, and also, I don't know. I don't think the Magic had StarCraft LAN parties the way that the Spurs did either. That's my favorite piece of NBA media is watching Tim Duncan and fucking David Robinson play StarCraft 1 in their hotel room
in the 90s.
In the 90s. That was awesome. God.
There's also the cultural fit for Tim Duncan on the Spurs made a lot more sense. In the same way the cultural fit with Shaq, because keep in mind, Shaq was like in movies, was rapping. Like Shaq was like wanted to do shit like that.
Yeah.
And like he just kind of had, like, Shaq had to move to LA at some point.
Yeah. Shaq had too much charisma.
Yeah. He was destined to go to the Lakers and play for the Lakers. It does get weirdly enough because keep in mind they had him those Shaq and Kobe years when they won the championships.
Yeah.
Shaq was already like 27, like he was in the middle of his prime. Yeah. So that's how young he was because they had multiple years when Shaq, I think it was 2 or 3 years where they just, and those teams were really good too. Like they had, it was Kobe, Nick Van Exel was on those teams, Eddie Jones. Like they had legit guys on those teams, but it took a few years to kind of work it out for Kobe to get a little bit older, for Shaq to hit his prime. And then everything kind of ended up working out. They got Phil Jackson and became incredible. Yeah. Shaq's in longevity is underrated, by the way. I agree with that.
I was looking
all NBA guy for 14 years. We talk about the all NBA shit all the time.
Yeah.
Like people act like it wasn't just his, like his peak was amazing. He has one of the 5 or 6 best peaks of all time.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, they literally had to fucking change the league because he was so good.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the fact that he was like outside of that, like young Shaq was amazing. And then older Shaq was still like pretty competent, like when he was the second best player on those Heat teams and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
amazing.
Yeah, they had to change the backboards too. Yeah, 60% of the salary cap Shaq signed for back then, before they made all these new rules. My favorite one is though the Chris Webber. Have you ever heard the Chris Webber story? When Chris Webber played only 1 season for the team he was drafted to.
Really? Yeah,
so it was the Warriors.
Warriors, right? Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
So he got drafted to the Warriors. He hated Donnie Nelson, the coach of the Warriors.
I remember hearing this.
They beefed, and back then you could get to the funny enough, 2 of the best players ever that were drafted and then left in free agency almost immediately in terms of like free agency back then were Chris Webber and Gilbert Arenas a few years later, who was drafted in the 2nd round, and they both ended up on Washington.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
The Warriors. I was going to say, you've got that working relationship. It's funny that like some teams just prefer to like trade with other teams. Like there's like connections with like certain front offices, and you can always tell like who likes doing business with each other. And I think that was like part of that thing with the Warriors back in that, like during those times.
Well, also the thing with those Warriors teams should have been really good because they were coming off of some success with the Run TMC teams. That was their name, and then they added Chris Webber, and they just never could figure out how to get all on the same page.
People like forget, like I don't know. I guess don't forget. They just like weren't born yet. But like when Trill and I were like kids, like the Warriors were like the Kings. Like they had been good in like the 70s, but they were like a dregs of the league. Like fuck it, like that. We believe the them beating the Mavs in the 1-8 was like the greatest thing that ever happened to that franchise. Like, nobody cared that they immediately lost the next round. Like
all I remember is a Donald Foyle and fucking. I mean, that was the first year where they showed competency with like Jason Richardson. Steven Jackson was on that team, right?
Yeah, Steven Jackson, Baron Davis,
Matt Barnes. Yeah. But in general, yes, they were a complete laughingstock when we were younger. They always just fumbled and fuck shit up like all the time. Like those 2 instances, the Arenas and the Webber move.
Yeah. And that was like what like the Warriors were like known for like all the time. And then like Steph Curry, like people also forget that like Steph Curry's like ankles were bad. Like,
well, that's the thing is that Steph getting drafted there and looking like a future all-star and then never being able to get hurt. It's like, well, another bad thing has happened to the Golden State Warriors. Oh no. That sucked. And then they just became a dynasty.
There was real discussions about whether they should keep Monta Ellis or like Steph Curry. And that was like a really,
and it was a legitimate debate.
Yeah. It like they almost traded Steph.
In a year from now, we'll be having those conversations about our version of Steph Curry and Monta Ellis, Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey.
Exactly.
And I'll throw up. So, friend of the show, Piss, posted a graphic comparing Monta Ellis and Tyrese Maxey's stats. And I was very upset. And then I tweeted at him and I said, yeah, we just drafted the next Steph Curry too.
The relocations, I'm just saying, the relocations from Jared are interesting. They're really interesting. So,
God, I can't go down that path. I mean, I'm having small market brain right now, as Will posted the other day and said that being a small market fan is admitting that you'd rather kill yourself than trade your 11th man for a star player.
Yeah.
I feel that way. This Tyrese Maxey season has made me so upset that I can't see him fail. I don't want him to go succeed on another team, but I also seeing him fail in general is making me feel worse than the Sixers being bad. Like, it is the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, I Marcus Smart. It's not with Marcus Smart, where even the title turned to ashes in my mouth.
A Tyrese Maxey Marcus Smart comp has hit Trill, bro, dude.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Pretty similar.
All right, we'll go back to Cooper Flagg talk. People are getting upset. I don't know how we ended up on this tangent. There's nothing to talk about, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Cooper Flagg, I already said the BPM thing. Of all of those players, he has the highest assist percentage, the lowest turnover percentage, and is the youngest player out of that group that I named earlier. Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, Michael Beasley, Kevin Love, and Chet Holmgren.
What would it take for him to fail? I'm trying to think of like a realistic, like worst case scenario for like Cooper Flagg, like outside of like catastrophic injury or something.
The worst,
like that.
The play style is the thing that, but even then, like,
yeah, it's
not like he's a small guard. Like, that's the thing. It's like when we talk about like these guys that like jump out the gym, like Zion is really the one that has not lived up to the expectations, even though he's shown flashes of it, because of the place. I think he could, just because he's so big and skilled. Like, obviously the jump out the gym athleticism and explosiveness is what kind of separates him from the pack, but I think he would still be really good even if he didn't have that. So I mean, I think that the floor for him is like, that's an interesting one, like a super Denny Avdia, current Alman Thompson, maybe even just Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
He's like the third best player on a championship team.
This is going to make people like roll their eyes right now, but like I have him right now, like in like terms of like prospects in like the Luka Doncic like tier. Like I think Anthony tier. Yeah. Well, Anthony Davis was like the best I've ever seen. I was really high on Zion, the Zion year too, because I was just like, I've never seen anything like this. Like that was crazy. Like, so Zion was like way up there too for me. Wemby last year was probably the most insane thing like I've ever seen. But like, I think like he's like the fourth or fifth best prospect I've seen in like the last like 20 years. Like basically since LeBron. I really wasn't like Durant and Oden were awesome. I didn't feel that way about Durant and Oden the way I do about these like other five guys. People forget like Durant, that Texas, that was stinky.
Well, I mean, he was incredible, but
he was incredible.
I mean, he didn't even go first in his draft, but Oden was also closer to a previous era of the NBA.
Yeah.
Like it was still, but in 2007, everyone thought having the best way to be great was still having a dominant big man.
Yeah.
Like that was like and to be fair, the history of the NBA shows us that, you know, those kind of picks are kind of a crapshoot anyway. Yeah. Sometimes you get Shaq or Hakeem.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get, you know, a list of injured guys that are never right and can, you know, even guys that had like moderate success in their careers. But the Durant thing was kind of a real shift in terms of these huge guys who could create their own shot, were legitimately really good shooters. I mean, he played as a rookie. Kevin Durant played as a rookie as like a point guard. Now he was very bad as a rookie, to be clear. He was still very young, but that kind of thing happens way more often now. And watching Flagg, like, I think even if all of the stuff didn't develop in the way that people thought it is going to develop, he has such a high floor with the role player shit. Like, he's very good at all the role player shit, to the point where I'm like, okay, there's basically no way this guy can fail, and his ceiling seems to be kind of like unlimited. And like I said, like, I was always grading him on a curve because he was 17 years old. And I've talked about on the podcast before, I think if you compare him to a lot of the top prospects, especially during the COVID era, because a lot of people took years off during the COVID era, a lot of people were a little bit older, the Cades, the Paulos, the Chets, those guys, they were all 20 when they were in college.
Yeah.
Like, or at least 20 on draft night, or by the time they started their rookie season at a minimum. A lot of these guys, like, he's just turned, he will be 18 when he plays in the NBA next year.
Yeah.
And I think that is the thing that is the greatest strength for his long-term outcomes, because we're already seeing him get better over the course of this season. We're already seeing him kind of figure things out and just dominate everyone in, playing against older players, playing against like legitimate competition. And what is he going to look like in March? What is he going to look like when they're trying him out in draft? I remember last year when he had that workout with the Olympic team, and they were like, he doesn't look like he looks like he fits in, basically.
Yeah.
And everyone was who cares? And then I'm like, I care. He's 17 years old playing against Olympians. Like,
he was fucking blocking Drew Holiday and doing relocating, like corner relocates on threes and athletically keeping up with all of these guys who were like the cream of the crop of the NBA. I was going to say that does sound like slander when it comes from you, when you say he blocked Drew Holiday, but so let's go down our rankings for the teams that need Cooper Flagg the most right now, because right now we've talked about the fact that like the league is so talented that Flagg might get drafted to a legitimately good team. Like, if you add him to it, it automatically makes a lot more teams make sense, at least at a minimum. Can you imagine if the Warriors got him?
I mean, the Warriors aren't bad enough, right?
Just flat odds. They're not in the play-in.
I mean, we've had 2 jump ups in 6 years. It doesn't happen that often. It's almost always one of the 4 or 5 worst teams.
Usually, but it's possible.
The 2 outliers are the Hawks last year and the Pelicans the Zion year. To get the first pick. Now, to get the second or third pick, sure. To get the first pick in the draft, you almost certainly have to be one of the 4 or 5 worst teams. And I just don't think that they're bad enough to get close.
I think Kyrie Irving was a Clippers pick, if I remember correctly.
Yep, but they weren't good. They traded their pick. They did jump up, but that was before they flattened the odds. That was just random. I'm not saying. I'm saying with the flattened odds, it's only happened twice, and that's in
with the
2019 to present has been the new odds.
That's still a pretty high hit rate, though. In 5-6 years to have it happen twice.
Well, let's see. This was the 2024 draft. So you have 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019. So 6 years. It's happened twice. The odds of it happening a third time in 7 years, not super high. I would say I focused on the teams that are currently top 10 in odds on Tankathon. So those teams would be the Wizards, Pelicans, Raptors, Hornets, Jazz, Nets, Blazers, Sixers if they jump up from 8. But right now the Thunder obviously own their pick because they're at 8. The Bulls, and then the Spurs. So, I mean, look, technically the Warriors could get worse. They could go down to the 7th. We do have the probabilities of it happening. It's not likely, is my point on this. So, which team do you think needs Cooper Flagg the most out of all of these teams?
Utah.
Yeah, Utah was number 1 on my list.
Yeah. I mean, well, just like even taking aside the Utah, shall we call them preferences, and how Cooper Flagg fits into those. Even outside of that, we've talked about before about how they just have had nothing happen in their rebuild for fucking 5 years now. It's like where they have no they don't even have like real rotation players outside of Markkanen, who's 28 years old, something like that.
I think Walker Kessler's a real rotation player. I don't think he's particularly like a great player, but I think that he's.
Yeah, I forgot about Walker Kessler. I was thinking more but Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, Collier.
They might trade Sexton at this deadline.
Yeah, Sexton.
Honestly, Sexton's one of the 3 best players, and they might trade him.
Yeah.
And
they should. Honestly, they should. Like, there's no point in like having this. Like, they have to. They have to do it, but like he would give them like real star like equity. Like, and they're one of the teams that is like missing star equity like the most. Like, even the Wizards, like
one of Bilal or Sarr might kind of turn a corner and figure something out. Yeah. I still think that there's an argument for the Wizards or the Nets at the top.
The Nets are like the other one, but it's like also they're like just starting there.
I was gonna say what a way to jumpstart your rebuild.
Yeah, right.
I do wonder, because I've talked about this with the Nets fans before. Mm-hmm. Nets fans do not know how to like. We have a Nets fan in one of our group DMs, CJ, who's like, I think they're gonna trade for De'Aaron Fox, and I was like, can you wait a fucking year, dude? Like, Nets fans don't have the patience for a rebuild because they haven't picked in the lottery in like 15 years. Yeah. And because of that, they don't know how these things kind of take a little bit of time, 2-3 years. You take a few cracks at the top of the draft. You have your other picks that might also hit that are from, other teams. I kind of look at the Nets situation right now and go, they're a team that if they trade Cam Johnson, this wouldn't be true. Mm-hmm. But I do think that of the top teams, like, I don't think the Wizards would be good immediately, to be clear. But the Wizards would start to get more interesting long-term.
Yeah.
The Nets would get very interesting long-term. Sure. The Jazz need it so desperately because they just signed Markkanen to this contract. And as you pointed out, like, the depth of talent isn't there, and they really need that centerpiece in a way that, like, the Nets are just starting their rebuild and they want to take a few cracks. The Jazz have been rebuilding for 3 years and kind of have nothing to show for it.
Yes, that's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Wizards, at least, like you said, if you could squint, I know Bub struggled, and I don't know if he's going to quite reach the level that we think he is long-term, but they at least have a few lottery tickets with these guys.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit less optimistic about the Jazz in terms of the lottery tickets that they have. Even if Walker Kessler gets better, he's still, a center who's the 15th best center in the NBA or whatever it is.
Right.
So I think that was the reasoning that I had the Jazz at the top of my list here. So I had Jazz 1, I had Nets 2, just because I feel like here's my other reason for the Nets.
Okay.
They've never drafted a player like him. Bro, I know we've talked about this before. Every time I get sent a new, like I just said about the Sixers, it causes me psychic damage when I learn more information about them. Will sent me a piece of information about the Nets the other day that was basically like, here's why Nets fans can't rebuild. And it absolutely blew my mind how bad they are at drafting their own. I'm going to find the stat because it blew my mind in terms of players that have been drafted for the Nets and played for the Nets. It is like horrifying how bad it was. Hold on. Let's see. I need to, this stat maybe, oh, here it is. Okay.
It's like Brook Lopez is like their best pick ever, I think, right?
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So their 3 best picks basically in the last, what? Is this 20 years? Yeah. Are Brook Lopez.
Derek Favors.
No, hold on. Okay. For the Nets though, right? Not on other teams. They traded Derek Favors.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Just for the Nets. That's it.
Just for the Nets. Okay, yeah.
Cam Thomas.
Let's go.
And Noah Clowney. This was what was this? Games the most amount of points scored by, that's not true though, because I don't know what the stat is. Will, what the fuck is this stat? Because this stat is literally Brook Lopez scored 31 points, which is the most amount of points scored. Oh, as a rookie, I think.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. But either way, Noah Clowney's already top 3 and just scored 29 points in his second year. So basically in his first few years in the NBA, long story short, the Nets do not draft well. The Nets have never drafted well. They've never even had a shot to draft well. Just for what it would do for the franchise to have a true franchise guy, they've never had a franchise guy that they did not acquire later in their career.
Yeah, that's true. Well, but part of that is that they do the stupid Knicks shit from fucking like the Isaiah Thomas like Knicks, because they drafted like Karis LeVert and Jared Allen during those things, but they traded those guys. They don't hang on. I mean, I know Karis LeVert is not like a star, but Jared Allen like is like a real fucking player and got traded to the Cavs for whatever reason.
He was traded the Harden trade. That made sense.
But this is just what I'm saying though. It's like part of the reason
that's like a good example though, I would say. They got Harden.
But I'm just saying, like this, the front office can draft, is what I'm saying. Like the Marks front office can draft. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been a historically like painful thing for the Nets primarily because like when Marks has been the GM,
too.
Everything. Well, because Marks was starting from like one of the worst positions any GM has ever started with the front office ever, in terms of like had the Bobby Marks fucking crater that was left from that trade, and then he climbs his way out of it and then actually does put together a fucking NBA championship favorite and is like literally wiped out by like one of the most insane. That is like one of the most insane things that's ever happened, is that like probably the best modern team in the NBA just played 16 games together because of COVID. And so people were
random
get vaccinated. Yeah.
And also just like injuries and I mean, the basically the greatest what if we've ever seen. So some of it is bad luck for sure, but now this was the stat, by the way. This was Nets players to score 29 points in a game before their 21st birthday. Mm-hmm. It's only happened 3 times, bro. Tyrese Maxey did that in his second week in the NBA. Like Jared McCain did that multiple times this year, and like the Sixers aren't like. They aren't even, obviously they got lucky with both of those picks, but it's not like they're drafting fucking stars every single year. They don't even usually have a pick that high, but the odds of it not happening is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Are almost impossible. And that's why Nets fans are so resistant to a rebuild. Getting a guy like Cooper Flagg would be the first time they've ever drafted their own franchise guy. Think about how much we tend to overrate the players that we draft and like how much we love our homegrown guys on our teams. The Nets have had to do that with like fringe starters basically for like 2 decades. So if they get a real franchise guy in a major city like New York, with all of their road to cap space this summer, that is like legitimately how franchises can swing from like poverty into like legitimacy.
Yeah.
From like where they're in, like they've been in the dregs outside of that 2-year stretch where they had those guys. And now they could make themselves into like that. What getting Cooper Flagg means for the franchise, I think would mean more for the Nets than it's meant for any of these teams. Because even the Jazz had Karl Malone, they had fucking Donovan Mitchell, they had Rudy Gobert, they had John Stockton. The Nets have never done it. There's an argument they're the only team that has never done it in terms of drafting their own guy. Like even the Hornets fucking have, I guess LaMelo and Kemba are really the best player, and Alonzo Mourning. Like it's not great in terms of they're probably the only other ones, but still, it's just insane that they have had such bad luck and also bad decisions that have led them to just never drafting a franchise guy. So that's why I think that they have an argument for one, to be clear, because of that. So third on my rankings, who would you say is third other than the Jazz and the Nets?
I went with Jazz and the Nets. Yeah,
I had Jazz.
Washington. I said Washington, and then I had the Nets third.
I had Washington too, just because adding Flagg to that core would be incredible. I think it would take them from another team that is just historically, they've drafted John Wall, Beal years. They had a lot of flops in that. and around that, to be clear. But they're not quite at the level of the Nets or the Hornets in terms of like just never really being able to like figure it out. But they're close. Like, I mean, we've talked about like they haven't won 50 games since the 70s, which is unbelievable. They've won one playoff series and two playoff series in the last decade.
It's tough.
One, like they've basically just been stuck in mediocrity. This would be yet another like fun, young, athletic player to add to that core. And I think that would really speed up their timeline too. Like, I don't think that they would be like making all in moves, but I think that it would take them from like what we've seen this year, which is like legitimately pathetic, to, oh wow, now all of a sudden like they have 3 or 4 guys and we can see what this core really looks like.
Yeah. No, they would be. I think they would be a competent, like, bad team, like with Cooper Flagg, and like, I think he could kind of like turn them around. I don't think Washington like needs it. Like, yeah, I was gonna say like the third like least. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm wondering if I have Washington too high, to be honest. Because I
think the Jazz and the Nets probably need it more. And I think Wizards need it third.
No, you're right about that. I actually don't think the Wizards. You know what? I'm disagreeing with my rankings right now. I'm going off the cuff here on the. I think Toronto needs him next.
Okay, I had Toronto 4th on my rankings.
I'm putting Toronto 3rd.
I actually had them 5th. I debated back and forth with this. The Blazers are in a weird spot right now.
The Blazers are the other one that I was, and I think I put both of them ahead of the Wizards, even though the Wizards are garbage and terrible. They have like more direction than the Blazers and the Raptors, who are kind of in the same situation where like.
So here's the thing.
I think
the Blazers immediately would be pretty good with Cooper Flagg, like because the thing that the Blazers and Raptors are really missing is that core guy. That like, all right, let's hit the ground running. Like, because right now the Wizards are only in the 2nd year of their rebuild. The Raptors are seemingly resistant to ever trying to rebuild. Like, or at least they're just fucking up at every corner. I mean, sometimes I just peruse over to Basketball Reference and I look at their contracts and I try to figure out which one is the worst. And it's actually a very fun exercise, especially if you also include Chris Boucher and Bruce Brown, who are expiring contracts right now. Like there was this clip that went around that was like Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons, where they were like, this team is bad and expensive. Yeah. And all their fans got really mad at, all the Raptors fans got really mad at them for saying, no, this team actually is going to be good. And like, they were right. Like this team is very bad and it's still expensive.
We said that in our preview pod.
Yeah, you especially. I was off on that.
Bill. Yeah, we said that before Bill. Like, no, but you agreed with it. You credit yourself. You agreed with me. Like when we laid out the contracts, we were like, yeah, this is dog shit.
Yeah, their contracts are very bad.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to be more competitive this year than they have been. But they like the Sixers are regularly playing some of the worst players in the NBA, and they also have bad health luck. And the difference is that it's not even like when their starters are all available that they're actually pretty good. Yeah. Their starters net rating together is like a very few amount of minutes, and it's very bad this year. So I'm trying to think, if you add Cooper Flagg to that core, like, because Scotty, we've talked about Scotty. Scotty's one of those weird guys where like, I like Scotty. He's very obviously an elite, like, complimentary guy, but at the same time, it doesn't fit into the mold of what we think of when we think of complimentary guys because of the shooting.
He's kind of the new Pascal a little bit. Like, I think they're like, they're not like, it's not like 1-to-1. They're not like very similar players, but like in terms of like what their destiny is like in the NBA, I think they're like very, by the way, you remember when Zach Lowe kept calling him 10-time All-Star Scotty Barnes?
Well, I mean, I think we can officially say that's probably not going to happen. I mean, I probably said more insane things about Tyrese Maxey, and he's also a one-time All-Star.
Maxey will make a few. He'll make a few more.
Well, Scotty made one. Maxey made one. Scotty's still 23. The thing that worries me the most about Scotty, though, is that he, for his career, is a 30.7% career 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And what we know about these secondary guys is that you got to be a pretty good shooter.
Yeah.
In order to fit next to a superstar level player, right?
Yeah.
And if you think, let's say you think Flagg is like a Jason Tatum, right?
Yeah.
If you were building a team around Jason Tatum, Scotty Barnes wouldn't be the second player that you would necessarily want to put with him. Now, would the defense be really good, and would there be a lot of wing playmaking, and could you make it work and make the team into a good team? Sure, absolutely. But for what their team context is right now, I wonder what the long-term fit there would be.
I think, especially if Flagg continues to like struggle with shooting, I think it's a really tough fit. I think RJ's not a good shooter.
That's the thing, is that I don't really know what level of shooter Flagg reaches, even though we feel really good about it. I mean, both of these guys are basically, like we said, like the floor for, I think we called Scotty the LeBron James of Aaron Gordon's. I might have stole that from somewhere. I can't remember. Yeah. The LeBron James of Aaron Gordon's. And then the thing with Flagg is like kind of a worst case scenario for him, even though I think he hits higher end outcomes, isn't a better Aaron Gordon type.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like super duper Sean Marion. Yeah.
But these are the kind of players that Masai does love, to be clear. Like, this is what he built the last team on.
I'm just going to spoil that. I think that's where he ends up. I've got a gut feeling that
Toronto's your gut feeling?
I think he's going to end up in Toronto, which is
interesting,
devastating for me and my agendas.
I think that, well, here's the thing. Do you think what Toronto's doing right now is ethical tanking? Because
Toronto, I think
they want to be good. You just think that they completely miscalculated.
Yeah, they're not like trying to like actively tank. They're just bad. Masai's washed. My goat washed.
Yeah. So the reason I ask you that is because we've talked about a lot about the ethical tanking versus, because really the only teams that are like blatantly tanking out of this group are the Wizards, Jazz, and Nets. Yeah. And like the Nets have tried to pull the plug to get there.
Yeah.
Which is funny that we had them in the top 3 here. When you get down to this Blazers Raptors group, like I don't think that they're trying. I think that they just don't have enough talent, or they miscalculated the talent that they brought in and how it would fit together.
Well, and that's the thing with like, I guess to talk about the Blazers, where it's like a similar thing, because the Blazers also don't really have. I mean, none of these teams have like stars or anything, but like Scoot was kind of supposed to be that guy, and Scoot's not him. Like,
no, we can even if you like Scoot long term, we can set sail on Scoot Henderson ever being a superstar.
Yeah,
there's never been a superstar who looks like him in his first 2 years. It's just it doesn't happen. Like to reach that level of player, you have to be like you have to be showing a lot more in your second season.
He could like I think a really good high end outcome for where Scoot is right now is he ends up being like a solid starter. Like I think that's got to be kind of where our head's at here.
I was going to say, and we might even be. I was going to say we might even being kind to him right now.
Yeah.
Because like he's shooting worse from 3 this year.
Yeah.
I know that they've moved him to the bench. It just it doesn't feel like it's going to work for Scoot. And at a minimum, it's not going to work for Scoot in Portland. And if your goal in a rebuild is to have as many shots at stars as possible, I think they have a shot with Sharp. I think they have a shot. That's the difference between the Raptors are in a weird situation because we know Scotty can have that high role player star level impact. We've seen him be on good teams. We've seen him make the All-Star team. We've seen him be a core of like something real. But like the Blazers are like if you look at the rest of the young guys on that team, like none of their other players have any star equity at all. Like even RJ Barrett's having like a really good statistical offensive season, but like how do you make a trio of RJ Barrett, Cooper Flagg, and Scotty Barnes work? Like it just doesn't. It doesn't work.
Bad, no.
So Why are you sending this into the fucking chat, Kevin?
Right. Kevin wants us all to die.
Kevin is Zach Lowe posting in chat right now.
Yep.
So anyway, but the Blazers are a team that have a few guys, whether it's Klingon being like that defensive anchor, who is a complementary offensive center that grows his offensive game, whether it's Sharp, who's like an explosive athlete with good touch that could potentially be in that like fringe all-starry kind of guard/wing, or it is someone that they draft in this upcoming draft. They at least have a few star impact level gamble guys on their roster right now. And Flagg would be, I think this team would probably go from like, if Flagg is as good as we think he can be as a rookie, they would probably jump like 10 to 15 wins next year.
Yeah.
Because they already have like Denny, Sharp, Klingon, Jeremy Grant even is like a fine kind
Starter.
of yeah. I don't know if Simon stays around or whatever.
Umani
but
Kamara.
Like they have they kind of just need that centerpiece, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
To really make themselves a legitimate team.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
And I think that now I think the fits would be weird because I think that they had like kind of like calculated around some of that other stuff, but like they do really need that to kind of like make that jump. And again, I think I might put the Wizards here, even though they're like very bad, because the Wizards, like after the Blazers and the Raptors, is it now? I think I'm putting them. What is this? 5 now? 6?
Yeah.
5?
So I have, this is my top 5.
Yeah.
1 Jazz, 2 Nets, 3 Wizards, 4 Blazers, 5 Raptors.
Yeah.
And then I had 2 other teams below that because once again, the Sixers are towards the top of this, but like the Sixers don't need to. Once again, would Cooper Flagg make them literally solve all of their problems? Yes. They don't need him. They have Maxey, they have McCain. They, even with Paul George not having a great year, like they have Paul George with Embiid's health stuff. They have Embiid. Like of all of these teams in the top, they're very obviously the team that needs him the least in terms of what it means for the longevity of the team.
So the Bulls.
I had the Bulls at 6.
Yeah, the Bulls are the obvious next one. Yeah.
I know that Kevin's been screaming in the comments for an hour now about they don't have any good young players under 23. They don't have whatever. I kind of think that I guess the reason why I put them here is because the odds are they're not going to even have a chance at drafting Cooper Flagg, to be completely honest right now. I mean, they have worse odds than the Sixers. If you look at it right now, like they're a better team than the Sixers right now. So right now they have the 9th best odds. If they're the 9th best odds in this draft, and yeah, they definitely could use him, moving forward. I don't think that anyone would deny that, but like, I guess I don't know what to do with the Bulls. Yeah, they really don't have a path out of mediocrity. I guess I don't really think of them because all of these other teams ahead of them are like legitimately tanking and bad. Whereas the Bulls are just always like the 9 or 10 seed.
Well, and this is the other thing though, like name me, besides the Spurs, name me one of these teams that like does have a path out of mediocrity right now. We're just talking about being a bad NBA team. Like, yeah, everyone could use a fucking good number 1 overall pick. Like,
true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's not like if we were to keep going up the list, like, skip the Spurs obviously, but like Atlanta could really fucking use Cooper Flagg. Phoenix could really use Cooper Flagg. I know those are San Antonio and Rockets picks specifically, but the Kings could really use Cooper Flagg.
The Kings have. It is weird to say because the Kings are also in the Western Conference, where it's just harder to make the playoffs and the play-in. But the Kings do have like De'Aaron Fox is in his prime, Sabonis is in his prime.
Zach LaVine.
I mean, Zach LaVine doesn't even seemingly want to be there, and he's like their best player.
Neither does De'Aaron Fox wants to be on the Kings.
That's possible. Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying, like, I don't like. I understand.
They certainly have a lot more young talent than the Bulls, though. Like Devin Carter, Keon Ellis.
Even though Keegan's been had a rough year.
Keegan's had a rough year, but Keegan, like, at a minimum, they have their young core is better, and like Malik Monk is still what, 26, 27? Like the Kings definitely are better off than the Bulls.
They're better off, but they're also not like if Kevin's point is that these bad teams are closer by virtue of being bad and therefore like can get more first round picks, but the Bulls are stuck in mediocrity, then the Kings are in the same position because the Kings are never going to get a top pick either. Like, so same with the Suns and all these other like teams, they can have more talent, but if you want to make the argument about like having no path forward out of mediocrity, that's like most of the league. Like
I was gonna say, weirdly enough, who I had last on my Cooper Flagg rankings, because I only ranked the 7 teams that in the top 10. I actually had the Hornets, which is weird.
Yeah,
because
they normally have LaMelo, because
they have LaMelo and Brandon Miller.
Yeah, they actually like don't really.
So like they don't have any other good players outside of like those two, because Mark Williams can't ever stay healthy. Yeah. Miles Bridges stinks. The rest of that rotation, like there's still somehow they should have he stinks. Do you want to read Tidjon Saloon's stat again?
We did it last year. Yeah, I was gonna say we do our Tidjon corner again.
But this is my point. The Hornets are in a weird situation where like they have reasons for optimism with LaMelo and Brandon Miller and all that stuff. And they're still so far away from just being like a normal bad team because they're playing the worst players in the NBA on a regular basis. And that's like all of the rest of their team outside of those guys. And they just whiffed on the Tidjon Saloon pick. And they'll get another top pick this year. The one thing I will say about this new front office is that they do seem to understand that.
Yeah.
They're like, we're taking a step back. We're collecting bad salary. We're taking on first and seconds. We understand that we're not close to where we need to be.
Well,
and I think that we're talking about the Hornets like 3 or 4 years from now being like legitimately very good. But if they were to jump up to the number 1 pick, LaMelo Ball, Cooper Flagg, Brandon Miller would be fucking awesome.
That's a fucking squad.
From a fun perspective, this is number 1.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that would be awesome, and that would be a really fucking good team. That's a really hard team. We talk about the 2 wings building. If you have Miller and Cooper Flagg, like that, and
with LaMelo throwing lobs for Cooper Flagg,
that's team building on easy. You almost can't fuck that up. Like, it kind of makes your team like bad GM proof, which is crazy.
They would move from like within 2 years, they would go from like team that is the laughing stock of the league, no one takes seriously, to like when we do our young core rankings a year from now, they would be like 2? S tier or A tier.
It'd be like they would them and the Spurs.
Yeah, I was the Thunder too, but yeah. But yeah, that's the or the Magic even like the amount of impact that would do. Once again, we talk about like even like the Blazers, the Jazz have already had superstars. Like those franchises have had, even like, I know we're also talking about the Bulls here. The Bulls have had superstars.
Yeah.
The Hornets,
Kemba Walker.
It's like LaMelo will probably end, if he can ever stay even remotely healthy, will probably end his career as the best Hornet of all time.
Oh, certainly. He's got to be Kemba, he's got to like, I feel like it would take him like 5 years to catch Kemba's numbers, right? Like Kemba was fine, but he wasn't like.
The availability is really what the problem is with LaMelo.
Yeah.
He only plays like 40 games a year. But my point on this is that if they were to draft him, they would legitimately go from like basically never winning a meaningful playoff series to like becoming like a very frisky team in the East in like 2 or 3 years. And also they could immediately kind of start pushing in some of those chips around, because I've talked about this before. I think the biggest market inefficiency you can have is having a star on a rookie contract. And I think we need to start treating it like the NFL does with quarterbacks. And I think that the Spurs are fumbling right now by not doing that with Wemby on this deal and not like trying to make like a legitimate contender this year or next year.
Yeah, I think if it gets to year 5 without, I'm okay with them not doing it this year. But I think if you get to year like if he gets extended without taking advantage of this, they've screwed up pretty badly.
He's already one of the 6 best players in the NBA.
I agree. No, yeah, it's awesome. Like
on a
I
rookie contract, bro. He makes less money than fucking like he makes like Vasila Micic money.
I get it. I'm just saying
less money than Josh Green.
No, but for who? Like, who do you want them to go get? Like,
no, I understand. I understand. I'm not saying panic.
Yeah,
I'm saying once again, he has dragged that team to where they are right now.
Yeah.
And I would have tried to make it if you're internal with the Spurs, right? Mm-hmm. You're around Wemby every day. You see how much better he's getting by the day. You understand the trajectory he's on. Bro, he's on the trajectory to be one of the 3 best players of all time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like if he's on the trajectory to be one of the 3 best players of all time, and he's making $10 million in an environment where teams are spending out the fucking ass and it's capping their ability to create good teams sometimes because of that. Having that guy who's already one of the 6 best players in the NBA in a West that, let's be honest, outside of the Thunder is kind of wide open.
Yeah.
I would have gone into this season not making, and I understand making the future focus moves because you want to, when Wemby's at his prime, holy shit, look out.
Yeah.
But getting like Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul as your major offseason additions, I would have just pushed it a little bit further. I would have been like, let's fucking go because we know how good this guy can be right now. And maybe they've decided to do that because they know that they want another lottery pick in this draft. And maybe that bet ends up paying off for them. But I understand the slow approach. I think that you make the exception for a player who's as good as Wemby.
That's true. I just don't think – I think that they probably would have if there were some options available. I just don't think there's like good players available. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's worth doing like the Brandon Ingram move instead of like Harrison Barnes. You know,
that's fair.
Like,
yeah. I also think it's possible that the Sixers are running into that problem right now where like all of these teams competing makes it so that like whenever one team is, so for example, this deadline, the only team that has been a seller that has players that teams actually want is the Nets.
Yeah.
And when that happens, when they have a player as good as Cam Johnson, the price is going to be astronomical because no teams want to tank. And if no teams want to tank and every team wants to be the Bulls or the Kings, then good players don't become available. Then the premium goes up on those good players. Then you have to give up 2 first-round picks for a role player. And I understand if that was the case that they don't want to do that. It would have been nice. It would have been nice if they were a little bit more aggressive with their cap space and their and trades. Is all I'm saying.
I got owned. I had their under, which is looking like
so did I. I didn't think they were going to be this good. Yeah. Once again, this is if I'm there.
Yeah.
This is complete hindsight bias from me sitting here saying I thought that this team was going to be mid and whatever. But like I know if you're in that organization, you know how good Wemby is. And you know that what happened at the end of last year wasn't fake and what he did in the Olympics wasn't fake. And now he's one of the 5 or 6 best players going into this like potentially wide open playoffs in the West. I don't know. Like are they even going to make the playoffs? Probably not. That's disappointing in my opinion. But I guess we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing at this deadline. I don't think they're going to be super aggressive, but and also I see someone saying this is why the Sixers should sell at this deadline. I don't really think they have much to sell.
Yeah.
That seems to be the problem.
Nobody's taking Paul George, so unless it's like I don't think Embiid's prices.
They're not trading Embiid. They literally can't trade Embiid.
Well, they literally can't. Yeah. So it's unless it's Maxey or McCain, like.
No, it would be Yabu, Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, those players, and like what you would get for those players is just not worth. It's not worth it. Like, you might get a second or 2 seconds for Yabu, but like Yabu doesn't even have bird rights. Like Yabu would have to be traded to a team that could make cap space to sign him because they could lose him walking in free agency. Hey, if someone wants to give up a first round pick for Caleb Martin, sure. I don't think that anyone's giving up a first round pick for Caleb Martin or Kelly Oubre, especially when Dorian Finney-Smith just got traded for 3 seconds. That's just kind of the situation that they're in right now. But all right, this was fun. I hate my life right now. But have fun in Canada. Sam's traveling across the border.
Yeah, if you want to recreate the Lee Harvey Oswald getting let out of the Dallas police department, if you're a Raptors fan, Wednesday night.
There will be many Manchurian candidates that will take this up.
I was gonna say I'm gonna get assassinated Wednesday night live. We'll watch. So Celtics could lose that game. Celtics almost lost to the Pelicans the other night. So like, who knows? Like,
Celtics are they're a bit on the Karis LeVert wheel right now.
I was gonna say a little wild card. We got the wild card Celtics right now, baby.
Yeah.
Like,
you never know what you're gonna get.
They might be bad.
So before we get out of here, Vikings or Rams?
Vikings. Yeah.
I'm thinking the Vikings as well.
Yeah.
Vikings Eagles next week. Oh my God, I'm gonna throw up.
That's going to be a great game. That'll be the best. No, Ravens Bills, but that would be the second best game next week. That's the game that I will be seated for that.
I'm gonna throw up.
I think no matter what, I think it's going to be all good games next week. Besides that Chiefs Texans stinker, but that won't stop me from gassing up CJ Stroud. Now I was rude to CJ Stroud next week. I've talked with him since then. CJ Stroud has a plan for me. He will defeat the Chiefs in single combat. CJ, I love you. I've never said any bad things about you ever. I haven't been calling you a fraud all year because I'm mad you ruined my fantasy season by suddenly just being terrible for no reason in your second year.
Sam, how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Yeah.
The Chiefs are just going to keep owning you over and over.
I know. I have to keep doing it. It's going to be very sad. I think the Bills. I'm a little Bills pilled this year. I think Bills are my Super Bowl pick, and
I was a little bit higher on the Broncos than a lot of people because I just bought into the Bo Nix hype down the stretch. I loved him, and then he was amazing on the first drive, and then that was just it for the rest of the game. So I can't even really say I wasn't that impressed with the Bills because they took care of business. Like they just did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
But it did feel once again I always forget that the playoffs are just different. Like the playoffs are tight. Like teams are playing their best game. Like they've had a ton of time to game plan. Like they've been thinking about it, but just in the moment, it didn't feel as the final score was the final score. It didn't feel like they dominated in the way that a contender would. But then again, like, dude, like, I don't know. Eagles fans are like, I'm not freaking out. I haven't really liked that Vikings matchup for a few weeks. I've been talking about it. I think the Brian Flores defense scares the shit out of me in the playoffs. And I'm not doomer mode by any means with the Eagles, but I just remember the year that they won the Super Bowl. They won their first game 15-10 against the Atlanta Falcons at home, and it took literally a goal line last stand possession against the Falcons where Julio Jones, it went over his head in the end zone. The Eagles win. They go on to win the Super Bowl 2 weeks later, beating Tom Brady or 3 weeks later, whatever it was. So things can change very fast is all I'm saying in the playoffs. Where like you can't really take it as like legitimately every game is a completely fresh slate.
No, and that's true. I think the Bills, I really think that the Bills are going to have the Chiefs number this year if they end up seeing the Chiefs. My concern is that I do think the Ravens, I think it's absolutely on the, like, I think that is just a coin flip game, like Ravens Bills. Like I think either team could win. And I am less high on the Ravens beating the Chiefs. Like Josh Allen has been like forged in the getting owned by the Chiefs thing, but he's too dumb to like have it like ruin his, so it's actually made him stronger. Like Lamar, I think Lamar's only lost to the Chiefs once, so he hasn't like been like, he hasn't been like run through the pressure cooker like Josh Allen has. So I don't think he's like ready to like face the devil magic like square in the eye yet.
By the way, I know this is the Chiefs are the all-time outlier, but perfect example was that the Chiefs win in a dog fight against the Ravens last year, and then fucking have their devil magic turn around where they just, light up the 49ers in the second half of that Super Bowl, send it to overtime and win. Things change week by week in the playoffs. It is really like hard not to get caught up in the moment. I'm at halftime yesterday. we're up. I think we were up 10-0 at halftime, if I remember correctly. And I was like, how do I feel bad about the team being up 10-0? But that's just what the playoffs do to you. Like the playoffs just make you uncomfortable as shit.
They make you so bad, man.
I know I have to explain this to you because you're a Patriots fan and you don't know what it's like, you don't know what it's like to be a big
brother. I was getting cooked by Byron Leftwich back in the day. No, sorry, not Byron Leftwich. Mark Brunell.
David Garrard?
Mark Brunell ruined my life when I was 9 years old.
I was going to say, I was like, wait, hold on. I remember the David Garrard game in like 2007 when you guys were undefeated and David Garrard, like weird, like the Jags with David Garrard kind of hung with the Patriots for like the whole game. And everyone was like, what the fuck is this? And they had no losses. And then obviously they lost to the Giants later. But
yeah, that was the word. I've told the story about like that being my freshman year of college and like going from watching only in like Patriots friendly environments to watching it with like my entire college cross country team in the house, and everyone is just screaming at me and laughing at me and pointing at me and booing at me because they were all like Giants fans. Like just a totally hostile environment. And I was like 18.
All of America, even as an Eagles fan, I know I'm not allowed to admit this. I was rooting for the Giants. Everyone wanted
because it was the Giants. Yeah,
because now we finally have the Chiefs again. That was the peak of the Patriots like villain shit back in like 2007. Like already won 3 Super Bowls, hadn't lost a game. They were also just like dismantling teams that season. Yeah. Like I remember the Washington game, they won like 59-0, I think.
Brady and Moss both broke the season touchdown records that year. Like it was crazy. That was a classic. Like Will likes to talk about the Celtics getting somebody for nothing. The fact that the Patriots got Randy Moss is absurd. That is like one of the most insane things that's ever happened.
Oh, dude, the Raiders, it was like a 3rd round pick because no one wanted Randy Moss anymore. He was like out of the, and it was like very obvious what was about to happen. I also just want to point out that I know that there are Patriots fans who are like, I would trade the first Eagles, like when they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, they're like, I would trade that Super Bowl and then like the Seahawks Super Bowl just to win the Giants Super Bowl, like the first Giants Super Bowl to have the undefeated
100%, like not even close.
Which is a level of fandom that literally no one can relate to. They're like, I would trade 2 of our championships for the one where we won every game.
It's so that those Giants. I can't believe we lost the second one too. Because
that was a good bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I was in college for 5 years, so it was like my super senior year that year, and I was in the same fucking house where I got yelled at because it was the cross country house. I was living there my second senior year, and again, it was a totally different generation because everybody else had graduated, but it was another generation of New Yorkers laughing and fucking making fun of me again because we lost the Super Bowl. It was like time was a flat circle in that one. So
real question. Real quick question for you. No. Have you ever seen the Logan Mankins tweet, which is like,
no,
the dynasty starts after you type shit?
Yeah.
He signed with the Patriots in 2005, and I think he left in 2013 or 2014.
Yeah.
And he was like a Pro Bowler, Logan Mankins.
Oh, Logan Mankins is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So he legitimately he was on the Patriots during the window when they never won. He made it to multiple Super Bowls, but he lost twice in both of the Super Bowls. So he was in between the 2 3-peats, or not 3-peats, but 3 in a few years.
Yeah. That's
like an ultimate curse.
That is so evil. I feel bad because Logan was a good. Oh, poor Logan Mankins.
that is like the most brutal.
Yeah.
Like you joined a team that had already won 3 Super Bowls. You made it to multiple, lost 2 heartbreaking Super Bowls, and then the second you were gone, they won 3 Super Bowls again.
That's crazy.
That is unbelievable.
Logan Marcus Smart Mankins. Okay. All right. How do you ban people in here? It's time to get Nate out of here. He's had it too easy for too long.
All right. That's a great place to end it.
Yeah. I got to wake up in 8 hours.
Oh God, go. Have fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, I got to go. All right. Later.